Today, we're going to be cracking open Mark Whistler's trade with passion and purpose to really explore, uh, the often overlooked world of trading psychology. You've shared some really compelling excerpts from his book, and I'm excited to really kind of dig into these with you, with our expert.
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's dive in.
Okay.
So, what I find fascinating about Whistler's work is he connects our inner world to outer success in trading. He argues that it's not just about charts and algorithms, but really about understanding the why behind our actions in the market. And he calls this purpose center.
That term purpose center really jumped out at me too. But how can we as traders actually pinpoint that why and make sure it's guiding our decisions and not just, our desires for a quick buck?
Well, imagine for a moment that you're the trader that Whistler describes, the one who almost went broke dabbling in currencies. Whistler later reveals that this trader was actually chasing quick cash because he was trying to impress a family member who doubted his abilities. He wasn't driven by genuine interest or passion for the market, but by a deep-seated insecurity.
So you're saying that sometimes our trading motivations, they run a lot deeper than we realize, that we might be trying to prove something to ourselves or to others without even being fully aware of it.
Exactly. Whistler argues that uncovering those hidden motivations, the why behind our actions, is essential. He suggests we ask ourselves tough questions like, why am I drawn to trading in the first place? What am I hoping to achieve? Is it financial freedom, intellectual stimulation, or something else entirely?
Okay, so let's say we've done some soul searching, we've identified our sort of purpose center. Whistler doesn't let us off that easy, though, does he? He throws in this idea of embracing discomfort, even arguing that it's crucial for growth. How does that play into, this whole trading psychology?
This is where Whistler's insights really challenge conventional thinking. He delves into Morita therapy, a Japanese approach that emphasizes accepting our emotions, even the negative ones, rather than trying to suppress them.
Interesting.
He argues that acknowledging those feelings of fear, anxiety, maybe even anger, and choosing how we respond rather than letting them just dictate our actions, this is key.
It's a brilliant analogy that he makes about overcoming the fear of riding a bike after a fall, right? It's not about ignoring the fear. It's about feeling it, acknowledging it, and then hopping back on. But how do we translate that to the often abstract world of trading?
Think of it this way. If you're afraid of taking risks in your trades because of a past loss, don't try to ignore that fear. Instead, you want to acknowledge it. Analyze what went wrong in that previous trade and use that knowledge to inform your future decisions.
So it's about developing a different relationship with discomfort, recognizing it as a natural part of the process, especially in such a volatile world like trading, right?
Precisely. And this ties directly into Whistler's discussion of self-honesty and esteem. He differentiates between ego-driven trading and esteem-driven trading.
Now, that's an interesting distinction. Could you elaborate on that a bit?
Of course, ego-driven trading is all about appearances. It's that trader at a cocktail party bragging about their latest win, but never mentioning their losses. They're more focused on looking smart than actual learning and growth.
They sound exhausting.
Yeah, they can be. But more importantly, they're building their trading foundation on, really shaky ground.
Right.
Esteem-driven trading, on the other hand, is about building a solid foundation of self-respect, of knowledge. It's about constantly learning, refining your skills, and acknowledging that even the best traders make mistakes.
So it's about focusing on the process, not just the outcome.
Right.
Reminds me of that story Whistler tells about the trader who is more focused on seeming knowledgeable than actually putting in the work.
Exactly. That trader was all ego, no esteem. And ultimately, that lack of genuine self-awareness, it led to his downfall.
It's a good reminder that true confidence comes from within, from the work that you put in and the knowledge you acquire, not from trying to impress others. And this leads us to a concept that might seem a bit out of place in a discussion about trading: forgiveness.
It might seem surprising, but Whistler argues that forgiveness is crucial for traders.
Interesting.
He believes that holding on to past mistakes can really cloud our judgment and lead to self-sabotage. He tells a powerful story about a trader who couldn't forgive himself for a past losing streak, and this regret crippled his future decision-making.
It's like carrying around a backpack full of rocks. Eventually, it's going to weigh you down and prevent you from moving forward. How can someone relate that to their own trading if they tend to beat themselves up over a loss?
It's about shifting your perspective. Instead of dwelling on the loss, you ask yourself, what can I learn from this experience? Analyze the trade. Identify what went wrong, and then use that knowledge to refine your strategy. Forgiveness in this context is about acknowledging the mistake, learning from it, and then letting it go. This makes space for clear-headed decision-making, unburdened by past regrets.
But that's easier said than done, right?
Right.
Especially when we're talking about financial losses, which often tap into our deepest fears and insecurities.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another major theme in Whistler's book, Fear and Anxiety.
Okay.
He doesn't shy away from the emotional roller coaster that is trading.
Which makes sense, right? I mean, we're talking about putting our hard-earned money on the line day after day. It's bound to stir up some pretty intense emotions. But how does Whistler suggest we deal with those feelings?
Well, he breaks down fear into two types, good fear and bad fear.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this good fear.
Good fear is that instinctual response that keeps us safe from actual danger, that fight or flight response.
Mhm.
In trading, good fear might prevent you from making an impulsive decision based solely on emotion or on incomplete information. It's that gut feeling that makes you pause and say, hold on, something doesn't feel right here.
So it's about trusting your instincts and being cautious when something feels off.
Hmm.
What about this bad fear?
Bad fear is the kind that stems from past experiences and can lead to irrational decisions.
Yeah.
It's the fear that whispers, what if in your ear and makes you question every move. It might cause you to hesitate when you should be taking action or to hold on to a losing position for too long because you're terrified of taking a loss.
It sounds like that kind of fear can be paralyzing.
It absolutely can be. Whistler argues that we need to confront both types of fear head-on. He even uses the harrowing story of Bob Williams, who survived a terrifying water taxi accident, to illustrate this point.
I'm familiar with that story. Bob used his experience to develop a heightened sense of awareness, both in life and in his trading decisions. So it's about recognizing those feelings without letting them control you.
Right, precisely. He talks about how the accident forced him to confront his own mortality and, in a way, liberated him from the grip of fear. He realized that while fear is a natural human emotion, it doesn't have to dictate his actions. He learned to acknowledge the fear, but not let it paralyze him, which he then applied to his trading.
That's incredibly powerful. But for those of us who haven't faced, near-death experiences, what are some practical steps we can take to manage those bad fear responses in our trading?
Well, Whistler provides some really useful tools for just that, and we'll dive into those right after this.
So before we jump to the break, we're talking about the importance of confronting our fears as traders. Both, that good kind that keeps us grounded, but then also that bad kind, right? That can really lead to analysis paralysis. And you were about to share some of Whistler's practical tips for managing those fear responses.
Right. So Whistler, he dives into some really interesting techniques, including like specialized breathing exercises.
Okay.
He argues that something as simple as changing how we breathe can actually shift our emotional state. For example, he suggests a specific breathing pattern for those moments when you feel that sudden surge of fear or panic, like maybe when a trade starts moving against you faster than expected.
Interesting. It's so interesting how he connects something as physical as our breath to our mental and emotional state. There's almost a meditative quality to it.
Exactly. And he also emphasizes the importance of relaxation as a key tool for traders,
Okay.
which might seem kind of counterintuitive in such a fast-paced field.
Right.
He even talks about incorporating elements of the Sivananda principles, which advocate for physical, mental, and even spiritual relaxation.
So it's not just about having a relaxed trading setup, but cultivating that relaxed mindset, almost like a Zen-like approach to the markets. But with all the noise and the constant information flow, I mean, in the trading world, how do we even begin to cultivate that kind of inner peace?
That's where things get really interesting. Whistler introduces us to the power of affirmations and visualization.
Okay. Those are two techniques that, they often get dismissed as a bit woo-woo. But I'm curious to hear how Whistler makes a case for their effectiveness in trading.
He argues that affirmations, when used correctly, can actually rewire our thought patterns and build confidence.
Okay.
For example, if you constantly find yourself doubting your abilities, you might use an affirmation like, I am a capable and confident trader.
Right.
The key is to repeat this affirmation regularly with conviction to really counteract those negative self-talk patterns.
So it's about consciously choosing to focus on empowering beliefs rather than letting those, self-defeating thoughts just run on autopilot.
Exactly. And then there's visualization, which can be incredibly powerful, but also easily misunderstood. Whistler uses a really kind of funny example of a pool game to illustrate how our visualization can actually backfire if we're not careful.
You mean the story where he kept visualizing the 8 ball going into the pocket, but not the actual shot itself, and then he missed?
Exactly. He points out that it's not enough to just visualize the outcome. We need to actually visualize the process, the actions we need to take to achieve that goal. In trading, that might mean visualizing yourself calmly analyzing charts, identifying those high probability setups, and executing trades with discipline.
It's like creating a mental rehearsal, almost like an athlete visualizing their performance before a big game.
Precisely. By repeatedly visualizing ourselves successfully navigating those situations, we're essentially training our minds to respond in a calm and collected manner when those scenarios actually play out in real life.
So we're building that mental muscle memory, so to speak. This has been incredibly insightful. But I'm curious, even with all this focus on mindset, even if we manage to find our purpose center and, we're chanting affirmations while we're doing our breathing exercises, are there still times when we sabotage ourselves?
Yeah.
When we let our emotions kind of get the best of us?
Absolutely. Whistler readily acknowledges that we're often our own worst enemies. We start doubting our abilities, chasing every hot tip, or clinging to losing positions just to prove that we were right all along.
Oh, I've been there. It's that stubborn part of you that refuses to admit defeat, even when the market is like screaming at you to cut your losses.
He calls out some classic, self-destructive patterns like that trader who kept pumping up his losing stocks, trying to convince everyone, including himself, that he wasn't wrong. He even convinced others to buy in.
Oh, no. Talk about digging yourself deeper into a hole. So how do we break free from those self-sabotaging patterns? What does Whistler suggest?
He emphasizes the importance of self-awareness, recognizing those negative thought patterns as they emerge, and then consciously choosing a different course of action. He also stresses the importance of having a solid support system,
Okay.
other traders or mentors who can offer those objective perspectives and help you stay on track.
So it's about having that trusted voice, someone who can say, hey, I know you don't want to hear this, but
Right.
someone who can help you stay grounded and see the bigger picture when you're too emotionally invested.
Exactly. And this leads us to another crucial element of Whistler's approach to the trading plan. He's very adamant about the importance of having a well-defined plan,
Okay.
not just for your trades, but for managing your emotions and your risk.
That makes sense. It's like having a roadmap for your journey. It's outlining your destination, the route that you'll take, the potential detours along the way. But in this case, the map also includes how you'll handle those inevitable wrong turns.
Exactly. He argues that a trading plan provides structure, it provides discipline, especially when emotions are running high. It helps you stay focused on your long-term goals and avoid those impulsive decisions that are often driven by, fear or greed.
So even with all this work on our psychology, even if we found our purpose center and we're chanting affirmations, we're doing our breathing exercises, we still need a solid plan. There are no shortcuts, are there?
Not when it comes to trading responsibly and protecting your capital, but even with the best laid plans, the market is constantly changing. Whistler doesn't shy away from that, does he?
That's true. He actually leans into that uncertainty, doesn't he? Yeah. What was it he said? The market is like a river, constantly flowing and shifting. How do we reconcile this need for a plan with the reality that the market is always changing?
That's where his final key insight comes into play, the importance of embracing change. He uses this fascinating historical example to illustrate this point, the Prussian army's disastrous defeat against Napoleon's forces. They were so focused on their traditional rigid tactics that they couldn't adapt to Napoleon's more kind of fluid guerrilla-style warfare.
It's amazing how those historical examples can be so relevant to something as seemingly different as trading. But the lesson is clear, right? Clinging to rigid strategies or outdated assumptions in any field, it's a recipe for failure.
Exactly. Whistler argues that successful traders are those who can anticipate and respond to change, constantly learning, refining their approach. He encourages traders to view the market as this dynamic entity, one that requires flexibility, adaptability, a constant willingness to learn and evolve.
So we need to find that balance between having that solid plan, but then also being flexible enough to, adjust our sails when the winds change.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the core of Whistler's message. It's not about eliminating emotions altogether, that's impossible, right? But rather about understanding how those emotions influence our decisions and using that awareness to make more conscious, purpose-driven choices.
So self-awareness is key, but it doesn't stop there. We have to be willing to learn from our mistakes, adapt to new information, and keep refining our approach to the markets. It sounds like it's just as much about mental agility as it is about analytical skills.
Absolutely. But Whistler doesn't just share his own insights on this topic. He also includes a series of really fascinating interviews with other successful traders who offer their own unique perspectives.
I was really interested to dive into those interviews, especially the one with Joe Ritchie.
Oh, yeah, the founder of Chicago Research and Trading, a legend.
Exactly. What were some of his key takeaways for navigating the psychological challenges of trading? Joe Ritchie, fascinating guy. His insights on managing risk, staying humble, really resonated with me. I loved that story he told about advising a trader who was, getting a little too big for his britches. What was it he said? Hope you lose it all and get your soul back in the bargain.
Right. It's such a blunt statement, but it gets to the heart of the matter, right?
Yeah.
Trading can be a humbling experience even when you're successful. Ritchie really emphasizes the importance of sizing up positions gradually. Don't bet the farm on any one trade.
Don't get too greedy. Don't let those early wins go to your head. Sound advice.
Absolutely. And he also shared this really kind of simple but incredibly effective strategy for dealing with those like stressful moments in the market. Those times when the pressure's on, you can feel your emotions taking over. He says, cut your position in half.
Just like that.
Seems almost too easy, right?
Yeah.
But he found that like reducing your exposure, even temporarily, can create that mental space you need to really assess the situation objectively and make those more rational decisions.
That really speaks to the power of just taking a step back, even a small one, to kind of regain perspective. Did he share any other insights that stood out to you?
Yeah, he talked a lot about the importance of having a well-defined investment system, something that acts as your guiding principle regardless of market condition. It's about having that structured approach that helps you navigate the market with clarity, with discipline, even when things get a little chaotic.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If you have a system in place, you're less likely to make those impulsive decisions based solely on emotion.
Right. You're relying on your, predetermined strategy, not just your gut feeling in the heat of the moment.
Were there any other interviews from the book that you found particularly insightful?
The interview with Dr. Sue Myers, who offered a medical perspective on stress and anxiety, that was really fascinating.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that the stress of trading, it can manifest physically too. It's not just in our heads.
Exactly. And she explained how that chronic stress can lead to all sorts of physical symptoms, from headaches, muscle tension, even insomnia, digestive issues. She even talked about the different types of anxiety disorders and how they can really impact a trader's ability to function effectively.
So what's the takeaway? How can traders kind of incorporate her insights into their routines?
Well, she stressed the importance of, prioritizing both your physical and your mental health,
Okay.
getting enough sleep, eating a healthy diet, incorporating regular exercise. These things can make a world of difference in terms of managing those stress levels. And she also talked about the importance of relaxation techniques like meditation, deep breathing exercises, things that we've talked about.
It's about taking care of yourself holistically. Your mind and body are interconnected. And you can't expect to perform at your best as a trader if you're running on fumes.
Right. And it's about recognizing when you need to reach out for professional help.
Right.
If those feelings of stress and anxiety become overwhelming, it's crucial to seek guidance from, a qualified therapist or counselor. There's no shame in asking for help.
I think that's so important to emphasize. There's still a stigma around mental health, especially in the fast-paced world of finance, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's seen as a weakness when it should be seen as a strength to acknowledge when you need support.
I agree. It takes courage to confront those challenges head on.
This entire conversation has been, incredibly eye-opening. We've covered so much ground today, from the importance of understanding our purpose center and confronting our fears, to the power of these relaxation techniques, the need for a solid trading plan. We even touched on the importance of seeking professional help when needed. It's clear that trading is just as much about mastering our own psychology as it is about understanding the markets.
Whistler's book really drives that point home. He provides a framework for integrating these principles into our trading routines by first emphasizing the importance of self-honesty.
Right?
It's about getting real with ourselves, about our strengths, our weaknesses, our motivations, and then developing a deeper understanding of our emotional patterns.
Yeah.
How do we react to stress, to fear, to greed, even to success? And once we have that self-awareness, then we can start to implement those specific strategies for managing those emotions in the moment.
So we're essentially equipping ourselves with a toolkit of techniques, like the breathing exercises, the visualizations, the affirmations that we discussed earlier.
Right. And surrounding ourselves with that strong support system of fellow traders, mentors who can offer guidance, keep us accountable, but ultimately it comes back to having that well-defined trading plan.
The roadmap for our journey, but not a rigid one, right?
It
We have to be ready to kind of adapt and adjust our approach as needed.
Precisely. As Whistler reminds us, the market is constantly changing, so our approach has to be flexible enough to change with it. It's about embracing that uncertainty, learning from our mistakes, and constantly refining our approach.
So as we wrap up this incredible deep dive into the world of, trading psychology, what's the one piece of advice, that one nugget of wisdom that you hope our listener takes away from this conversation?
Well, that's a tough one. There's so much valuable insight packed into Whistler's book, but I think if I had to choose just one takeaway would be this. True trading success isn't just about intelligence or, analytical skills. It's about cultivating self-awareness, emotional intelligence, a deep understanding of how our inner world influences our actions in the market.
Beautifully said. So to our listener, I encourage you to really take those words to heart. Explore the inner workings of your own mind. Pay attention to your emotional responses to the markets. And remember, trading with passion and purpose, it's a journey of self-discovery, not just a destination.
And never be afraid to reach out for support along the way. There's a whole community of traders out there who understand the unique challenges that you face.
This has been a truly enlightening conversation. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and as always, keep diving deep.